Today we have Mr. Sam Wegert. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's right, man.
Awesome, man. Well, sometimes last names, you might have a certain way of saying it, and I might screw it up completely with my Hispanic accent. So,
You did good. You did real good.
brother, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks,
Who
Ricardo.
is Sam, man? Where do you come from? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. First of all, thanks for having me on. It's an honor to be on. It was great to connect with you a little bit before we clicked live there. But yeah, I come from a small town in Virginia. I'll just start. I can take this wherever you want to go, but I come from a small town in Virginia, and obviously we're here to talk about real estate. And I was, growing up, my dad used to always say that real estate ruined him. He bought like 15 properties in 2016. I'm sorry, 2006, 2007. They were all 100% financed. They were on adjustable rate mortgages. And then like he put all of his retirement into that because he thought it would like help him retire faster. And it didn't, obviously, because 2008 happened and he just lost his shirt. And so
that's the perfect recipe. That was the perfect recipe for 2008.
Yeah. The full circle part of this story is that. So growing up, my dad would be like, Sam, you have to, because I'm one of 8 brothers and sisters. So he would tell us, he'd be like, guys, I lost a ton of money on real estate. You guys have to, he's like, I need one of you to become a doctor so I have good medical care. I need one of you to become a lawyer, and I need someone to be really rich. Well, for me, I was just like, I took it seriously. I was like 12 or 13 years old. I was like, I have to help my dad retire. So ironically, my wealth has now been created through real estate, the very thing my dad like lost all of his money in.
Now, so that's pretty interesting that you mentioned that. So what did your dad do after 2008?
So my dad had a W-2 job. He worked,
okay.
He worked for a nonprofit university. He worked for the largest Christian school at the time. It was called Liberty University in Lynchburg, a town called Lynchburg, Virginia. And
yeah, I know where that is. I've done marketing there.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's where I went to school. I went to school there for 2 years before I dropped out to be an entrepreneur.
Okay.
But it was a really interesting, he basically tried to, he was in a partnership that didn't work out. He did not vet the partner very well. And so he ended up suing the partner. And nothing really came of it. Honestly, I think he still owns, to this day, I think he still owns 4 of those properties. And they're like just now have gotten back. Like maybe a year ago, they just got back to when the same value they were when he bought them. It took a long time. But so he rents a couple of them out, but he was going to flip them real fast and make a ton of money. So they ended up just holding on to them, but the mortgages went up a bunch.
That's how most people start, right? Hey, I want to flip a house so I can build up my capital, and then I'll become a landlord, and and next thing you know, the universe has a different plan for you. Exactly. You are going to become a landlord now.
That's right. The real estate gods
are going to be able to sell it off.
Yeah, the real estate gods are for real, man. They've got a mind of their own,
So how do you get? Well, how old were you when you guys started in real estate?
So I bought my first, I'm 32 now. I bought my first property back in 2011. So what is that? 13 years ago?
Wow. Yeah.
So I was 19.
Bought my 19. Good for you, man. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. I saved my parents. One of the things my parents did teach me, and it's just such a valuable lesson for anybody, man. We know the secret to being wealthy is just ultimately to spend less than you make. That's step one, right? Some of these principles I love teaching. They're from this book called The Richest Man in Babylon. I don't know if you've ever read it.
I know that.
Just a classic, right?
The grandchildren of your grandchildren should be the ones paying for all your stuff.
Yeah. So if you spend less than you make, that's the key. And my parents just drilled that into me. My parents were big. I don't know if you remember back when in the United States, it was called the year 2000 crash, Y2K.
Yeah, Y2K, yes.
Yeah, everybody thought like the computers weren't going to be able to keep up. My parents thought like it was going to happen for real. So we bought like guns and ammunition, and we bought this new house. We had gravity-fed water. We had a hot water heater that you could like.
You guys were prepping, man.
We prepped hardcore. Yeah, it was hardcore.
Preppers. Do you still own the containers?
Yeah, we still have some 5-gallon buckets of like beans and rice and shit.
That's funny, man. That's awesome.
That taught me to save a tremendous amount, because my parents it was like very like hoarding mentality. Like we would even put cash in a PVC pipe and then we'd bury it. Like wow. I still have 4,000 ounces of silver when I bought, because my dad convinced me to spend every last dollar I had, and I bought silver, and it's buried somewhere in Virginia. Like
you know what? Today that sounds funny, but let me tell you something.
Yeah.
In 2020, when COVID happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
I guess you were ready for it.
I was ready.
And a lot of people were ready for it, right? People that thought that way, you know what? I'm going to bury some cash. I'm going to buy some silver and some gold. And you know what? I'm going to prep for doomsday.
Right.
Now they didn't look as funny or dumb anymore, right?
Yeah.
They look like geniuses, because when COVID happened and we didn't know what was going to happen, we were going to be locked down for months at a time or whatnot. Everything is shut down. The whole financial, you know, I guess everything, the whole system is complete. You're like, okay, the next thing is people are going to go on the streets and they're going to start shooting people. And now we're going to see real vampires on the streets, right?
Yeah.
So
hey, I was ready. I have 3 AR-15s.
And you know what? And so was my brother. My brother has, I mean, this dude's got some weapons. Like he's from Venezuela, but guess what? He's like, he was born exactly where you were, because he had AK-47s, he had 9mm. He's got a safe that you got to put your thumbs and eye metrics and things like that to open it up.
That's badass.
And we were actually, I was talking to him. I was like, dude, how do we get these weapons here? Like, do we get a cabin out in the woods? And do we, I'm thinking about all these things for real. Like, this is, like, people take it for granted. I love to see those shows like Preppers on.
Yeah. You know what's interesting about this, man? What's interesting is, like, I don't think you should live in fear, right? I don't think anybody should live in fear, but there is definitely, you know, my generation especially. I was born in 1991. I haven't seen anything. I mean, it would be easy for anybody from my generation or even the generation before that didn't go through a war, right? You know, to think like, oh, like, peacetime is normal. Like, all the wars happen way over there. But if you really study history, like, World War II was not that long ago. And do you know how many people died in World War II? Like, millions and millions, like 40, 50 million people got either shot or blown up. And like, so like, when you start thinking about it like that, and I make some content on this because I'm like, guys, like you don't know, just because we've had a beautiful period of history. Absolutely. And this is actually an interesting segue, because this is why I'm all in. So what I do mostly is co-living. What I do mostly is room rentals. And it's basically an affordable housing play. But the part of the reason I'm all in on that is because when I look at the future, I don't see things just getting better and better and better and better and better. I see things getting worse before they get better. That's just my personal belief. And so how can I prepare, maybe with some gold, some guns, and some silver? And how do I prepare my real estate portfolio? Someone listening to this might have a bunch of Airbnbs. Cool. You might want to diversify into something that will be needed, not just something that's wanted, right? We want a vacation. We don't need a vacation.
No, you're right.
And so I help people see that there's you need to be prepared no matter what's coming. And that's how I want to set up my real estate portfolio.
I love that. And so you are a landlord, right?
Yeah, I got 150. I have 100. My wife and I have 150 doors, and then we manage 150 doors on top of that. Those are all room rental doors. And then we have, I think we've sold a bunch now, but we have like 6 short-term rentals. We used to have more, and we've kind of started selling those off.
What's your opinion on the STRs? Because I've used Airbnb before, okay, and
me too, yeah.
I'm not a fan, to be honest with you, of Airbnb.
Okay, let's go.
And the reason why I'm not a fan is because sometimes you get to a property that's not really what it looks like on pictures, right?
Yeah.
I'm not knocking down the model. I'm not by any means. I'm just knocking down certain cases that I've experienced, right? Maybe it's my fault because I didn't read well the reviews, or, you know, I missed something when I was selecting the particular property. I've actually rented a mansion in the past, and I actually know the owners of the mansion. And next thing you know, this mansion is having sewage problems.
Yeah.
But because I know the owners, I'm like, okay. And then they cut me a deal for the mansion. I'm like, okay. So I've seen a lot when it comes to, and I've also had amazing experiences through Airbnb.
Sure.
Sure. You know, hotels are getting smarter nowadays, and they're competing more on I guess on the amount of money they're charging per room.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, they were a lot more expensive than Airbnb when Airbnb first came out. So You have 6 XDRs, right? You mentioned.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself keeping those, or maybe moving them to your older model, which we'll dive into a little longer?
So first of all, you're so right, Ricardo. Like I have an Airbnb that's in the mountains. It's probably $800,000-900,000 house, beautiful long range view near this town, very popular tourist town in North Carolina called Asheville, North Carolina.
Yeah, I know exactly where that is.
Beautiful view, sleeps 24 people. Well, we had a party, an unauthorized party. So like just a party that like someone showed up, they didn't tell us, they brought a bunch of friends and music, and we just thought it was a group. Well, the neighbor decides to call the police. They file a police report. They send that. Our neighbors send that to Airbnb. And Airbnb, without zero warning, like didn't call us, didn't text it, was just like, hey, we're delisting you for the next 45 days because you had an unauthorized party at your house. And from our standpoint, we're like, we didn't even know there was a party. Like we did our normal process. It was a 3-day booking. It wasn't like it was a 1-night booking where someone just is there and leaving. And so we tried, but like it was 45 days during our busiest season, which was probably a $20,000 month, right? And so like it started to plant those seeds in my mind of, and for the other reasons that you just mentioned, some people are starting to question the Airbnb model, right? But it started to plant those seeds in my mind of like, wait a second, is this what I want my income
you
to be?
You can't even control that because it's completely out of your control.
Yeah. So I think the Airbnbs that are going to do the best in the future are going to be the big ones, though, is the truth. Because I think you're right. When I go with my wife and we're going into a town, I never think about booking an Airbnb if it's just my wife and I. Because if it's just my wife and I, a hotel is easy. I can check in at any time. I don't have to like follow like the instructions.
They'll make your bed and everything, right?
Like this long, like drive in the back door, unlock the code, do 3 jumping jacks, then do a push-up, and then the door will open.
Let me figure out the Wi-Fi now.
I don't want that. And it's like not that much cheaper. But if I'm going with 15 or 20 of my buddies, if I'm going to go run a mastermind, like I'm going to get a bit. I'm not going to a hotel for that because now the cost just starts to get a little bit different. So I think we would only keep the ones that have massive, what I call X factor. So we've got a lakefront property. We've got a property with a view. It sleeps 20 plus people, and they're a pain in the ass to manage because like anything that sleeps more than 20 people, but the income I think can be worth it. And I think those are the ones that are a little bit more competitive, and it's a niche within Airbnb. So we'll keep probably 5 or 6 of those. We did just sell our Doomsday Prepper property though. It had so much equity in it. It was a gated estate. It had 5 acres. It had a gun range on it. It was an Airbnb. Wow. It had a walk-in gun safe, like underneath the house.
Wow.
You open up these doors, and it probably held 150 guns. Like you could walk in it. And it was all like climate controlled, and it had security cameras everywhere. I bought it as like a place, but then we never stayed in it. And so I just rented it out. And then I was like, we had to sell it. So anyway, it was a sad moment. So I think we'll sell some of those, but all the ones we've sold, we're just redeploying into like co-living and room rentals.
Okay. And when did you make the decision to go to a co-living model?
That's a great question. I kind of stumbled into it. I bought that first property I bought in 2011 was a 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo. And it was in a town. It was in Charlottesville, Virginia. That's where I was living at the time. I used to run martial arts schools. That was my main gig. I owned and operated a chain of martial arts schools. And I was living in
what kind of martial arts? It was jiu-jitsu, like, karate, or?
Yeah, it was a mixed martial art. It wasn't like one style, but Taekwondo based. So a lot of like legs kicking. Yeah, it was fun. Nice. And then jiu-jitsu, Krav Maga, we added all that stuff in.
Got it.
Yeah, it was super fun. And I miss it. I haven't done it in a little while, but I miss it a lot. As of a month and a half ago, I just exited all the schools. We had 7 locations and an online program, and we just sold everything. But
good for you.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice. But we decided to, I just would live in one room because I was single and I rented out the other 2 rooms. And I was like making money to live in my house. So I call that house hacking. Everybody knows that as house hacking. That's where you live in it. When it becomes co-living is like what happened when I moved out of that place. And now it's a business. Now you're not there. You're running it like you're a normal landlord. And I just went on this journey. One of my banker friends, so I bought a house in Charlotte, moved to Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where I live now. And I was renting it out to 3 other people. And I had a banker friend ask me, he said, how much are you renting that house for? And he was a good friend. And he was like a vice president of a bank, very smart guy. And I said, I'm renting it for like $2,400. And he goes, that house would only rent for $1,300.
How are you doing this? Yeah.
He goes, he's like, that's crazy. How are you doing that? And for whatever reason, something clicked. And I was like, well, shoot, if I'm renting it double the market rent with only 4 people, what if I could find a house that would fit 5?
Right.
And Ricardo, I just went on this crazy journey of like, what if I could find a house that would fit 6? What if I could find a house that would fit 7? What if I could find a house that would fit 8? And like, when my wife met me, I had 6 roommates. Like she was like, this isn't going to work. I'm not living with you with 6 roommates, but I loved it. And keep in mind, I grew up with 8 brothers and sisters.
Yeah, for you, it's not abnormal. It's like whatever.
Yeah. It's like whatever. And so our last 2 houses that I just launched personally were 10-room homes. And everybody's like, that's crazy. Your roommate, they must kill each other. There's no way that works. And I'm like, it works. Like, it works really well. You have to have good systems in place. So I kind of stumbled into it. And then I just realized I had the opportunity to meet Robert Kiyosaki back in 2015. And he was at an event and I was at an event, and I met him and I shook his hand and I said, hey, I'm doing this room rental thing, but I'm a little scared because I don't see anybody else doing it. And he just gave me, you know, I just believe at certain times in your life, there's people who like say the right thing at the right time and it changes your life forever. That was this moment. He was like, Sam, room rentals are the wave of the future. He goes, I already know he says, if shit hits the fan, this is his quote from him.
No, said, I know he's very vulgar, man. I know the man. So I know how he is.
He says, I know how I'm going to split up my 4,800 square foot house that I live on. He's like, I already know where I'm going to put the walls to make it 6 units. Wow. And I was like, okay, if this is good enough for Robert Kiyosaki, like,
where was this at?
What was that?
Where was the event at?
So I'm a part of a mastermind called GoBundance. I've been in it. It's for years and years, and they brought him in to speak to the
Got
group.
it. Okay.
Yeah, it's the shirt I'm wearing right now. It's
good.
This
deal.
is my tribe. It's a men's mastermind. They call themselves the group of healthy, wealthy, generous men who choose to lead epic lives. So we travel and do real estate and do bucket list adventures and things like that. So they brought him in to speak to the event. Yeah.
Good deal, man. I love masterminds. I honestly, if I could, I'd join more.
Yeah.
But I'm at the point where I'm like, I got enough on my plate. You know, sometimes some of the ones that I'm part of, I don't even participate like I should because, you know, I'm not paying attention, or I got other priorities, and the calls happen when I'm busy or I'm out of the country or one. Like the last time with the family mastermind, I wasn't around, and I had like FOMO. I'm like, man, I'm not there, but I just couldn't make it. It was almost impossible.
Right.
So, so you got 150 property or 100 properties somewhere around there, all under that model, or do you have some that are regular rentals? Then you got your 6 STRs, and like, how does that look like?
Yeah. So I want to clarify. I have 150 doors.
Yes.
And so that translates to probably about 40 homes, right? Because we have anywhere between 5 and 10 units per home.
So you count a room a door.
Yeah, because
I love that. Yes.
It's an individual unit. It's an individual lease on that unit, or what we use now called something called membership agreements. But it's an individual membership agreement on each door, and it's not tied to anything else. So yeah, absolutely. And you're renting it. I mean, in Charlotte, you're going to rent a room for anywhere between $700 to $1,100.
Oh, same thing here in Houston. Actually, I live in Houston, and in Houston right now, we're seeing rooms for $1,000.
Yeah, dude, Houston. I have like 6 students in Houston. That's a poppin' market for room rentals right now. Like, that's a good market for it.
Good deal.
Yeah, it's like, man, it's this model of real estate. The reason not everybody's in it is because it's somewhat new to the United States. Like, it's very popular. You travel overseas, it's like room for rent everywhere.
No problem.
Right?
Yep.
I was in Medellin, and it was like signs: room for rent, room for rent, room for rent.
Same thing in Maracaibo, where I'm from in Venezuela. It's like, I have a lot of friends that are living in a room, and no problems, right?
When I first came out on Bigger Pockets, I had an episode on Bigger Pockets, and I was talking about room rentals. This guy from Germany calls me and is like, he kind of scolded me. He was like, got angry. He was like, you're talking about this like it's new. Sam, it's not new. He's like, in Europe, this is how we live. And he goes on to tell me some story about how he runs this company, and the only way he could get people to work for his company and move to Berlin, because evidently Berlin is like one of the most expensive places in the world. He was telling me, he's like, I had to rent them a room in addition to their salary, or they wouldn't work for my company. And the only thing he could afford to rent for his people, he couldn't afford to rent them a whole place. He could just rent them a room. But I think what happens is, in America, for many years, we've had the American dream. And that is like, you get a job, you invest in 401k, and then what do? you buy a house, your own house. And this is sad, but like right now, I just looked at an article. In order to buy a median priced house in the United States, you have to make like 110 grand. Like, is it because of like the median price across the United States? I think this article was saying was like 480 or 490 or something. And it was like, that's insane.
Most people here in the US are house poor, which means they have a job, they make good money, and because of the ease of buying a property and cars and things like that, they go get into the house they can afford the most, right? They go get in the car they can afford the most. And I'm guilty of that. I've done that in the past, okay?
Yeah.
That's not me today.
Right.
But in the past, I did it. I lived in $1 million home.
Yeah.
I drove the most expensive thing I could drive.
Right.
My wife did too, you know, and don't get me wrong, I made good money. So I could afford that lifestyle with no problems. I did buy investments and things like that too, but I was house poor for a while because my mortgage was taking a big chunk of what I used to make.
Right.
And we never think that's gonna end. You know, we think that a job is gonna be forever. I come from corporate America and I make good money in corporate America. I'm not a corporate America hater at all. Like I tell people, if you have a W-2, double down on buying properties on the side.
Right.
And do what you can, become a landlord, flip some, you know, work on your skill set. If one day you get laid off or fired or whatnot, you can start doing deals on your own, which is what I did for years. Dude, I remember I used to join network marketing companies when I was making almost $300,000 a year in my job. And people will be like, why are you doing that? And I was like,
skills. Get your skills.
I'm working on my skills.
That's great.
Building downlines and recruiting people and selling, right? So, and they thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Now go back and ask me if I'm crazy because I'm thinking, you know, and I enjoyed it. You know, network marketing has one of the best training programs ever.
Yeah.
You either make it or you don't. That's it.
They do. Yeah, no, I agree. There's one called LTD. It's an Amway one. I don't know if you ever heard of LTD. It's like it's a brand. It's a pretty big brand that someone built within the Amway brand.
Wow.
And their leadership training like is second to none. Like they train their people on sales and marketing and leadership and relationships. It's amazing, man. Yeah.
I love, you know, network marketing. Now I just want to be the owner of the network marketing company. I don't necessarily want to go build a downline myself. But the reality is I did all those things, right? And I did it because I was working on myself and I was adding skill sets to me and getting to network with people that I wouldn't normally network, right? And a lot of them throughout the years, they either became friends or became partners in some cases or became students of mine in real estate.
Yeah.
Because then they're like wondering, okay, I see you're doing this real estate thing. How can you help me get into real estate? Right. And they all came because I was networking like crazy all over the place. I slowed down big time on the networking when it came to that because I focus now like you on masterminds and elevating into those groups.
Have you ever heard of something called the 4 levels of value?
No, tell me about that.
I'd love to share this with your audience too, because I think this was really valuable. This comes from a guy named Myron Golden.
I know Myron. Yeah, he's badass.
Myron's badass. Yeah. This is like his stuff. And when he shared it with me, it radically changed my world. He said, in life, you will get paid for the level of value that you're at. And I think this kind of goes to what you're saying in terms of like, how do you increase your skills? He said, the first level of value is implementation. It's where you use your muscles to make money. You dig the ditch. You're the guy doing the thing. You make all the calls. That's you. You're implementing. And it's the lowest level of value. And usually, you know, you're going to kind of cap out at $80,000 to $100,000, maybe, you know, $80,000 to $90,000 in a job like that.
Right.
And he says, but his whole purpose in teaching this model is that money is actually spiritual in nature. And so you're trying to move up this ladder, so to speak. So that's number one, is implementation. Then he says the next level of value is what he calls unification. And unification is basically the people that get all the other people to do the job. And, you can max out at maybe 300,000 if you're managing a very highly successful sales team to 70,000 if you're managing a McDonald's or something like that. Like there's a range there, but you're still going to cap out. And that now you're using a little bit of your mind, but mostly you're using still your muscle to kind of organize people. And that's called unification. The third level of value, he says, is communication. And that's where a lot of these MLM, multi-level marketing companies, they kind of start to teach you the skill of communication. He says communication is now you're using your mouth. And your mouth is a very, if you think about it spiritually, like God spoke in the world into existence, depending on what you believe, but like still it's a very spiritual type of communication. So when you communicate, now your income is not capped at 300 grand. He goes, if you're an A-list singer, you're an A-list actor, now you're capped at like 20 million. Millions and millions. He says communicators make almost the majority. You think about Tony Robbins, right? Tony Robbins
is the number one paid skill set in the world today.
Yeah. And he said that's the skill set you really have to develop if you want to do what we do. If you have to, you're going to be on podcasts, you're going to be in masterminds. You've got to develop and find ways to develop your skill of communication. And he said the fourth level of value is like something very rarely people reach in this lifetime. He said it's like the Elon Musks, the Bill Gates. He says it's the level called imagination. And when you're in the imagination level, your money is making money for you, and your mind. You don't even have to. You probably have people on your team that communicate. You're thinking, you're creating in your mind, and you're imagining these like new worlds.
That's exactly my role today.
That's beautiful.
To think about new ideas, how we can grow, don't get me wrong, nothing is perfect. We all have imperfections in our business, and I think some things I wish they would be better. We strive to improve them, but that's why I was telling you before we started the podcast that I had to make a tough decision, because I had to let go of something that made me good money, which was wholesaling. To focus on our call center and growing that and investing in those guys, in the guys that are running and doing all the work and growing and interviewing people and hiring. I don't make the decisions now. They do.
That's beautiful.
They tell me, hey, we hired 5 people this week. Perfect. Hey, we fired so-and-so because they did. And I'm like, who was that? Like, now, not that I'm disconnected from them, because I know most of them. But in the last 3 or 4 months that I haven't been present with them in the office itself, there's a lot of new people I don't know. And I love it that way, because that means my efforts are being multiplied through other people. And I don't have to control the whole process. They're doing a good job by doing what they're doing. They probably do a better job than if I did it myself. I wouldn't even say probably. They're most likely doing it. and that's exactly on that. That explains your 4 levels, right?
It frees you up to be a better. It frees you up to do communication and imagine.
I couldn't be doing this right now if it wasn't for them.
That's beautiful.
I would have to be talking to a seller or who knows doing what, right? Or working on QuickBooks. I don't know.
One of the richest guys that I personally know, his name is David Osborne. He wrote a New York Times bestseller called Wealth Can't Wait. He made his majority of his money through real estate and then selling real estate. He owns several Keller Williams regions, which is like a pretty big deal in the Keller Williams world. And he's multiple 9 figures. I think he just crossed 200 million. He's very transparent about his net worth. And he's been my coach and my mentor for a long time. And he said, Sam, in my life, I don't want to be directly responsible for any KPIs whatsoever. Everything is always delegated 100% of the time. And he said, so that's my number 1 rule. He's like, my number 2 rule is any job I don't ever want to do, there has to be 2 people between me and that job, or else if somebody gets fired or quits in between there, it comes back to me.
It doesn't come back to him. Yeah.
He's like, it never comes back to me because I've got a buffer. It's going to come back to that guy first. And then there's another buffer. It's going to come back to that guy first, then this guy. And then, oh my gosh, if something crazy happens, maybe I get that CEO job back. But more than likely, I'm not going to, because there's multiple buffers. And I always thought that was really smart in just how he set it up. And it wasn't because he was lazy. It was because he knew, and he would tell me, he came to me one time and he said, Sam, you need to stop working so hard. Most of your money at this stage in your life is not going to be made from working. And that was crazy for me because I was raised middle class. We idolized hard work.
Right. Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with working hard.
What do you hear all the time? Hard work pays off. Yeah. No, it doesn't.
Yeah.
If people, and this is something that people need to understand, and I'm so happy you're bringing this up right now, Sam. If people understood that hard work doesn't pay off, they will delegate a lot more.
That's right.
If hardworking people,
that's right.
And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean you and I don't work hard. We probably do more than we're supposed to be doing right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, and sometimes it's hard for us to get out of our business. Like, well, if I do this one task, I know it's going to be done correctly.
Right.
So I'm going to take care of that for now, right? And that's a huge mistake if you want to grow. But if people got paid in direct relation to the amount of efforts they put into what they do, then people mowing your lawn should be making more money than you are.
They should be millionaires.
People that are working in McDonald's should be making more money than you are because think about it. They're standing all day long, 8-hour shifts, sometimes more than that. And they have sometimes 2 jobs. They go from there to somewhere else because to be able to afford living nowadays, if they're making the minimum wage, how do they afford, how can they afford?
Yes.
My grandparents or the people that were working before me, they should have been gazillionaires because they work as teachers, right? I have a student, she's a teacher. This woman works very hard. Is she making all the millions? No. Because she has no time. She's always grading students. Teachers are the most hardworking people I've ever met, man. They have to teach students all day long, and then they take home their homework so they can grade students.
To someone that's middle class, that was raised middle class like I was, it's the hardest thing to disconnect in your brain because it doesn't feel fair. It doesn't feel fair. But to bring this back around to Myron's point, it's because he's like, money is actually a spiritual thing in nature. It's an idea, right? And so it doesn't come from what we were taught. And so we have to rework that. There was a time in my life where I was trying to drill this concept that you're talking about, that we're talking about in my head. So I pulled it up while you were talking. I want to share it. I wrote these affirmations down and I would repeat
to myself. Go for it. I love that. I love affirmations. I'm an affirmation guy.
Yeah. So I wrote down because I wanted to like try to redo that mindset from my middle class upbringing. That was like, I wrote down, slowing down is working. Thinking is working. Resting, I'm just reading from my list, is working. Sleep is working. Reading is working. Dreaming is working. Doing nothing sometimes and just letting your brain simmer isn't working. So I think that there's a time where like things you transition to, wait, you mean me sitting in you mean this conversation, which is so fun and cool, is work? Yes. You mean me sitting down and just journaling and hanging out or going for a walk is working? Yes. It's like that was so hard for me to understand, right? Just thinking is working. But I think when people get through that in their head, it unlocks some powerful ideas. And ultimately those ideas can generate and turn into revenue. Because, man, I'll just share this. Before this call, we were talking about virtual assistants in other countries. And, I know that I have a virtual assistant that, what they make in another country, we could probably delegate most of our stuff to. There are things that I thought I would always have to do until I unlocked virtual assistants. And
let me tell you, and this is a great point you're bringing up. Let me tell you how I got there.
Yeah, please.
So in 2021, I had an office here in Houston, about 3,000 square feet. We had about 10 to 15 dispositions managers in our wholesaling operation.
Right.
And for the first time ever, I had $1 million on assignments to collect in the next 90 days.
Nice.
I was excited, man. I was like, because I had made money in the past in the flipping business.
Yeah.
But never in wholesaling.
I know where the story is going, so I'm like happy for you, but I think I know where it's going.
You know what? I got $1 million. Oh my God. I'm like, I'm going to share the wealth. Right. So I get to the office and I talk to all these guys and I said, look, guys, I'm excited because I think we had at the time 67 properties under contract. And they total, and some of them were commercial buildings and they were large assignments. So they total like a total of 1.2 million, something crazy like that.
Right.
And I said, look, guys, on top of your salary and your bonus, I'm going to grab another 300 grand and I'm going to give it to you. But we must close this money in the next 90 days. And they all got excited. They started shouting, oh, yeah, let's do it. 90 days later, it didn't happen. And I was like, whoa, what happened? And I had analyzed a lot of these deals. They were deals.
Right.
And I was like, what happened here? Like, so the money, the incentive, I guess it wasn't there. They didn't do it because I wasn't pushing them. And I'm not expecting to push an adult.
For sure.
Like, you should know
300 grand on the line.
Yeah, like, especially look, if they would have been, I don't know, 12 of them in between 300 grand, that's an extra $25,000 each.
Yeah.
In the next 2 or 3 months. Like, come on. Like, really? You're gonna not collect that? Plus, we're generating more new contracts.
Yeah.
And we probably got about a 20% of the money collected.
Yeah.
And I was so disappointed. But I was mad at not disappointed not only at them but at myself, and I was like, started questioning, what did I do wrong? What could I have done better, like, to motivate them? Because I gave them money, but maybe money wasn't enough. Now I gave them an office with a gym. Maybe the gym wasn't enough. Now I let them in and out of the office however they wanted, and maybe that was not enough. So I started questioning a lot of things, right?
Right.
And I run off something called the Vision Traction Organizer. And I've been using a VTO forever. I love planning. I love putting everything on paper. To me, that's a roadmap to success. It's like a vision board, but with goals attached to it, right? And numbers and very, very defined. And here I am, man, frustrated. Don't get me wrong. We weren't broke, but we weren't really thriving, as a business. So I pulled my Vision Traction Organizer and I said, I'm not going to focus on the negatives. I'm going to focus on the positives. What did I do right? And I started going through all my lists and I started checking things off. This is right. This is right. This is right. And believe it or not, it was about 80% of it. It was right. But when I looked at the personnel, I noticed there were 2 names that were constants that were doing amazing. Their names are Carlos and Carla.
Yeah.
They're brothers, actually. Brother and sisters.
Yeah.
And I said, these guys have been with me now for about 4 years. Yeah. How come I have not put more attention to them into helping them grow, delegating them more, and treating them not just as VAs, but as my team members?
Yeah.
So I showed up on a Monday to my office and I thanked everybody. I said, guys, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This is it. You guys can go on your own now. And I've literally fired everybody. I did. And what I did is I called Carla and Carlos and I said, guys, I'm ready to invest more in you now because you're loyal. You've been working for me for so long. And I think you're capable of doing more.
That's beautiful.
And they're like, yeah, let's do it. What do you want us to do? And I said, I need you to find me 5 people that will lead generate for my dispositions manager, which is about the only guy I kept because he was at the time he was a student, he was fairly new, he didn't know any better, and he was doing his job well. So I need these 5 people to lead generate buyers for the dispositions manager.
Yeah.
And I want to see if he can sell properties that way. And man, we started selling deals left and right with these VAs from overseas, right?
Yeah.
Then I'm like, oh, it worked. I'm going to do this on the acquisition side now. And I did it with, at the time, Shane was working with me and he was kind of like the acquisitions manager / COO.
Mm-hmm.
But the system didn't work for him for a reason. He wasn't being able to lock up a lot of deals on their contract or whatnot. And I started wondering why. Why is it working for this side and not for the other side? Mm. So I dug more into it and I said, okay, let me play now sales, the acquisitions manager in a COO role.
Yeah.
I'm going to disconnect Shane for a while. Maybe Shane is a problem. Maybe it's not me. Maybe it's not those guys. And as soon as I empower those guys to make offers and send contracts and agreements and all that, we started putting properties on their contract left and right. by themselves. They didn't know any better. All they had to do was be empowered. That's it.
Follow your system. Yeah.
They follow the system. It was 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And if you do these 3 things, it's gonna work.
And
so I have to. Go ahead.
This is such a valuable like life lesson too. I've so many times we put focus into what gets our attention, and what gets our attention is the people and the problems that, like, the people that are sucking get our attention, because they're the ones that are constantly in our face. Like, oh, I can't stop hearing about this person because they're so terrible. They're so terrible. I need to fix this person. But we do this with businesses. Like, I remember there was one time in my life where I had 8 or 9 businesses running simultaneously. Well, guess which ones I put 80% of my time into?
The ones that weren't performing.
Yeah, because I was like, well, I have to fix them. And then I had my, my COO, who I have in my life right now, comes along, and he's like, why don't you just literally shut those businesses down?
Cut it off.
Never occurred to me. Like, I was like,
cut it off.
Good idea. And like, we do that with people too. And I'm so glad you're sharing this, because honestly, it's a great reminder for me. I still need this reminder today of like, those people are taking your time. Double down on what's going well. Don't double down on the things that are already kind of sucking. And a lot of times in life, frankly, I'm an American, but I was homeschooled. So I have this little thing with the educational system in America.
Oh, I do too.
We teach you to double down on what you suck at. If you're great at math, we say in America's education system, we say, hey, you're good at math, but but you suck at science. So we're going to put you in remedial science.
Yep.
You're not good at science. Why would you double down on what you're terrible at?
Yeah, it's like you're getting penalized. You're getting penalized for being good at math.
Yeah, exactly. There's a great book called Soar with Your Strengths. It's a beautiful book, and it's an allegory. It's like a little tale about a rabbit and a bear and a rabbit, a bear, and a duck. And it talks about them going to school, and like the duck goes really good at swimming, but the bear like sinks. And so the teachers are like, it's the same thing I said. The teachers are basically like, hey, Mr. Bear, you don't need climbing trees anymore. You need swimming class, extra swimming class. And the bear like gets so depressed, and he goes home and wants to kill himself. But that's how we teach people today. And it's not the right way to think about life, especially in business.
No. And that's what I realized at the time. It was like Shane wasn't working at the time.
Yeah.
Working out in my system. So I had to have a conversation with him. I said, Shane, I'm sorry. He's my friend today. We're still friends. We talk all the time. I was like, brother, it's not working out. My process right now for you is not helping you, and I cannot hold you back anymore.
Right.
I cannot take more of your time. Your time is too valuable. You need to go grow on your own. And as soon as I empower those guys on the acquisition side, bingo, we started getting properties. What happened was later on, like I was telling you offline, my students and my friends started asking me for it, because I show them, it's like, I'm profitable, number one, because I'm operating overseas. Right. I'm making more money than ever now, and my time is like, I regain all my time back.
Yeah.
And little did I know the universe was taking me through a whole different path. And it got to the point to where I was like, okay, I love wholesaling, but the universe, now I know how to recognize the signs of the universe. Right. That's very hard for people to do.
That's right.
But if I'm getting pushed in a certain direction, I'm going to listen and I'm going to follow. And I'm going to be like, you know what?
Yeah.
If it's not this real estate thing that I'm doing, that I've been doing for the last, 15 years, is not where I'm supposed to be focusing on. It's because my calling is different.
Yeah.
And I got to go focus on what's actually is fluent, is easy to do. And it comes like without a lot of hassle. So last year, I sat down and I said, you know what? I got a lot of properties under contract. I will clean up my plate. I will collect what I can collect. But I'm going to give my efforts to helping this other operation grow, because I believe that's my calling right now. And our calling may change from time to time.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it was hard for me, because a lot of my friends, they're judging you. They're like, oh, so you gave up on real estate. Right. No, I didn't give up on real estate. I just had another business that's taking most of my time. Yeah. And maybe eventually I'll get back on that. But that's like a bicycle. It's like, do you ever forget how to ride a bicycle?
No. Or swim. Once you learn how to swim, you never forget. Yeah.
Right. And especially if they throw you in the water.
Yeah.
You're not going to sink.
Man, right? I 100% agree with what you're saying. So when I when I was 13 years old is when I started working in my martial arts school. And I thought I was like, my vision for my life at that time was I was going to have 100 martial arts schools. I was going to be the most successful martial arts school owner and operator. And like, it just wasn't the plan. As it stands today, 5 weeks ago, I've sold all of that. And wow. What you're saying is exactly that, which is
you sold your dream.
Yeah.
Think about this.
Yeah.
You sold your vision from when you were 13 years old.
Yeah. It was a very sad moment for me, to be honest. And I was like questioning everything, but it was the universe for me. You know, like God, it was God, I think, guiding me, saying, hey, there's another path for you. And this is, so I could have fought it and fought, and, you know, gone down with the ship, so to speak. Like, no, I'm just going to stay. But I would have hurt myself emotionally, mentally. And also
other people that are involved in the process.
People, absolutely. And so I wasn't in a place to continue. And that's a subtle thing. I think people would do better if they took time, whether that's meditation, you said affirmations, we're just taking time to like kind of sit with like, hey, is this checking in, just doing these check-ins, not every second, but doing them every quarter, every year to say, hey, am I on this path? How do I want to direct this path? Where am I being led? Where am I being guided towards? I truly believe that in life I'm guided. And so just being able to follow that. A great book, I know I've dropped a couple book recommendations, but a book that really helped me with this was called The Surrender Experiment. It is it's this like multi-millionaire, and just he tells his story about how he just kind of decided to be like, I'm going to surrender to wherever life takes me. And it's this like amazing journey that he goes on in life. And it was like his experiment of life to say,
I'm pretty sure you've read the Alchemist, right?
Yes, I have. I love that book, man. That's great. That's similar concept. Yeah.
It's a life journey, right? Yeah. And the guy doesn't realize what the universe is preparing him for.
Yeah, that's right.
Like he gets beat up and beat up and beat up. Like he's just getting beaten down after beat down. And poor kid, man. I mean, but eventually he was like, wow, now I'm standing on top of the mountain and I understand why I got beat up so much and why the universe took him through. I read that book in a flight in between Singapore and Australia back and forth.
Nice.
So that's about a 7-hour flight. And I was in Changi Airport in Singapore. And that's when I was in the oil and gas business. And I heard about the book, but I don't know that I was into self-development big time like I am today back then. And I saw the book and I've heard about it. And I said, you know what? I'm going to pick up this book and I'm going to read it on the way to Australia. And it was so good. I read half of it on my way there. I put it away. I did my job, what I was supposed to do. I got back on the airplane, came back to Singapore again from Australia. And on the other half, I read the second half.
Right. That's amazing.
But I was drinking beer and I started laughing uncontrollable on the flight. And people were looking at me like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? Like, and I'm looking at this book and I'm crying down on tears.
Yeah. Like it's that kind of book.
But I was probably drunk, because I've been drinking beer after beer after beer, but I never like gave up on reading the book. And I finished the book. And what happened was I had realized at that day, at that moment, how I got to where I was.
Right.
I started, when I got beat down for this, or when I lost that job, or when I did this, or when this guy did this, all these negative things that happened in my life, I understood that they had to take place in order for me to take a different path.
Yeah.
Right. And it was. I remember that day like if it was yesterday, man. This is long time. This is in 2006.
Yeah. It's the most peaceful, calming realization, right? Okay, life is actually happening. I think one inspirational speaker says it best. He says, life is happening for you. You've got to find that reason sometimes, but it's happening for you. It's not happening to you, right? And so I know that's a big part of our success. That's a big part of both of our success journeys and stories. So
I have a big event this weekend, right? And yesterday, the hotel sends a message canceling a bunch of reservations to the rooms on Wednesday. So we have people flying in on Wednesday because we have actually a mini family mastermind on Thursday.
Okay.
Now, these people are freaking out. They're like, oh my God, where am I going to stay? And, Ricardo, is your event good? And I'm like, I don't know. Like, it's Sunday. So who do I call at the hotel? Nobody's going to answer, especially the people in sales and catering and all that. They're not working on Sundays.
Right.
So like yesterday, literally, and then I got friends like John Jackson. They're posting this thing everywhere that the event is canceled now. Like, but he's just making fun out of it. Like he tries to make fun out of every situation. And one of the guy calls me, and actually I called the guy. I said, Frank, I don't know what's going on, man, but in the emails it says that they have mechanical issues, and those issues need to be repaired. The last thing I want is for people to stay at a hotel where they got plumbing issues, they don't have hot water. So if we need to postpone this thing, we will. What's the big deal? Yeah, I have 300 people coming to the event, but we'll just have to send them an email and say, hey, this is not going to happen this weekend. It's going to happen the following weekend. It's completely out of my control.
Wow.
Man, you sound so calm. And I was like, I am. It's out of my control. There's nothing I can do about it. All I can do is tomorrow morning, when I know the office is open at the hotel, call them and find out what the facts are and go from there. And if I need to find another venue, I will, because that's not the only venue in the Houston area.
Right.
And if I need to postpone it, I will postpone it, but I'm not going to sleep over it. You know, and sure enough, this morning, I called the hotel and they're like, yeah, Ricardo, we actually closed this weekend. So we're going to be open for your event. No problems. And the people on Wednesday are going to be relocated to other hotels. We're going to send them an email. Problem solved. But I could have worried
out over nothing.
I could have just stressed out yesterday and worried over nothing. Right?
Crazy. Yeah.
And then I send them all a message, guys, event is going as planned. No big deal. Everybody show up. We're going to have a great time on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And and we'll call it a day, you know? So
that's beautiful.
So let's talk about real estate for a minute. Let's, and I like that deal that you presented earlier on your first deal, right? Where you sublease the property to multiple people and the rooms and all that. What does a typical good deal look like for you? Like, what are the numbers? Like, what was the purchase price? Do you rehab the property or not? Walk me through one of your deals from starting to until you got all the rooms leased out.
Yeah, for sure. I can walk you through one of my last deals I just did. And then I might have a call after this that I've been pushing for a few minutes.
No problem. We're almost there.
Yeah. So a good deal. So first of all, what we're normally seeing in the market is that if you do co-living correctly, you can get 2 to 3, sometimes 4 times the amount of rent that you would be able to get if you were to rent it out to a single family. So the income is amazing. And of course, you have to be willing to manage or have a company that knows how to manage these co-living rooms. But the last deal that I just did was this property at 733 Yorkdale Drive. I was even going to just share some quick pictures real fast. I don't know if this will come through or not. Did that come through?
Yeah, it's coming through. I just got to do is.
Yeah. So this is an example of a home, and you can actually see it's like very beautiful, very nice.
Wow.
It's just a normal brick home. We added a little concrete to add some parking. Anyway, I won't go through all of it, but this is that's in essence that's an example of what a home might look like this. And that one ended up being 10 rooms. And so what it looks like is we bought the house for $410,000 here in Charlotte, in a decent area, like a B area in Charlotte. We added 2 bathrooms and we added some walls and some closets. Now, I didn't have to add 2 bathrooms. I just did that because I really like my properties to have a lot of bathrooms for the people to share. So it was 3.5. That's not true. I added a bathroom and a half because it was 3.5 and I made it a 5. So a bathroom and a half. And so I think we put $30K into it. So we're in it for $440,000. Now, the house right next to mine on Rentometer would have rented for like $2,400. And that's about what the house this size would rent for.
Right.
$2,500. We leased it up in 32 days. And the total revenue was $8,560.
Amazing. It's double. It's at 2% now.
Yeah,
you're pulling in the property.
Almost more than 3 times what the house next to it would have rented. Because, granted, we had a little bit of rehab that we had to do to make it very nice for this model. But ultimately, It helps solve affordable housing because that's what this is serving. It's serving anybody who makes $20,000 to $60,000 per year and can't afford a studio apartment in one of these big cities.
Right.
They still need a place to live, still need a place to rent. And so we're solving a big problem and doing that in a really cool way versus like Airbnb we were talking about that takes housing away from people who need it. This is giving housing back. And as an investor, you're winning. Now, and I don't want to make it all sound like roses because it's not. You have to know how to manage and fill these properties. That's the part that people still need to learn, and it's nuanced.
Do you teach that?
I teach that. That's what I teach.
Make sure you put your content info here, and
yeah, for
so
sure.
we can actually promote that because that's something that a lot of people are not talking about today.
That's right.
And now on the refi side, once you go refi these properties, do they go off on the appraisal value? Is it a DSCR based on the amount of money you're bringing in? How do they factor that in?
Yeah, we have had one bank so far, and I believe more will do this. One bank so far has told us, hey, we will refinance totally based on the income that the property is bringing in, not a comp-based appraisal.
Got it.
In order to do that, though, at least with this one bank, you have to have a certain, I think it's 6 to 12 months of income. You have to have the proof that you've been able to create that because it's still a new model, right? But what's beautiful about that is imagine your property. I mean, based on the income of this property, it might be worth.
No, it's like a multifamily. It's the same. They're analyzing as a multifamily deal, pretty much.
Exactly. But most of the times, if we're going to refinance them, we're going to put them on a 30-year fixed kind of debt service type loan or investor type loan. And it's just going to be a normal appraisal. And, you're going to, but 90% of the properties I'm buying for myself or my students are on market deals. So imagine this deal was on market. I didn't have to knock on any doors. There's nothing wrong with that, but I didn't have to, right? I could.
Yeah, it was the acquisitions process was simple. It's simple. You saw it online, bought it, made the changes you had to make, and make goal out of it, right?
Yeah, and you can still do that in a lot of markets today. If you use the co-living model correctly, you can still find deals on market that cash flow great. And so I believe this is one of the best and fastest ways to achieve financial freedom for the average person.
And you can do that fast, man, because you're doing amazing, right? Because you have 40 doors and or 100 doors. I forgot how many, but anyhow, if you're getting started and you get 3 of these houses, you get to 10 doors real fast.
That's right.
If you cash flow, I don't know, $400 a door, that's $4,000 a month already.
That's right.
And on cash flow, which is, I mean, you're not getting rich, but you can pay some bills with that, and then you build on top of that. But anyhow, I feel like we can probably do another podcast again sometime pretty soon, Sam. Thank you so much for being here today and telling us about your model. I love that model. Although, for me, I don't know if I ever do that because I don't like tenants, much less a bunch of tenants in one house.
You'd have to use a company like me, or there's a big
Delegation. There you go. Hey, Sam, there you go. Do the property management on this thing. You keep your portion of it. I'm out of it. That's very important to know what you really want to do when you grow up. I got to all my rentals and I didn't like being a landlord and I just got rid of them, period. I was like, oh my God, I got to my dream and I had to sell my dream. Right. Yeah. Same thing that happened to you with your martial law school. So, anyhow, where can people get in contact with you? If you can tell them to find you on social media, Instagram, send you a message, because this is a very interesting subject that everybody.
Man, people can find me on Instagram, just my name at Sam, S-A-M, and then Wegert, W-E-G-E-R-T. Or honestly, if anybody's interested in learning more about co-living, it's really simple. We do these every month or so. We do these 5-day challenges, and these 5-day challenges are just free content. It's an hour a day for 5 days. They can learn about this. And so that they just have to go to scaleyourrealestate.com, www.scaleyourrealestate.com. And they can register for whenever they can get on the waiting list for the next challenge. And
awesome.
That's how everybody starts in our program. Everybody's got to go through the challenge to really learn about what we do. And so I would encourage people to go there.
Amazing. I've done 5-day challenges in the past and I love those.
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun.
Well, thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you being here today, brother, and we'll see you on the next one.
God bless you.